So Grandma Gardy, when she got pregnant with Daddy, she announced to everybody that it was going to be a girl. So she decorated the room in pink, she got pink blankets, pink clothes, and all of her family and friends brought pink gifts for him. Well, when she delivered at the hospital, the nurse wrapped him up in the pink blanket and said, "Here's your Pinky." So obviously he wasn't a girl. And his name was Myron Bennett Thompson, but he was always known as Pinky.
My father was born and he lived in Alewa Heights. And the family was a poor family, but they were wealthy in many other terms. And part of it was coming together as families. So they would have luau, and the family would be there. Every child is kapu, every child is sacred, every child needs to be taken care of. And that's what I think was foundational in his mind.
His mom and dad would take in orphan children or children that came out of the youth correctional facilities, and they would be kind of like Hanai children for a while because they never have a home. They don't even know their names, but they're going to sleep next to them that night. They're going to be eating with them that night.
It would be him and his brother and sister, his parents, and maybe 10, 12 other kids every night. And they didn't have any money either. So his parents, my grandparents, would not eat. They'd wait till all the kids finish eating. If there's any food left over, they would eat too.
When they saw mom and dad only drink water for dinner, that's because they're out of food. And that tomorrow we eat guava when we go to school. And so that being next to children that need us the most, that society typically serves the least, I think was enormously influential in the path that my father would take for the rest of his life.
Pinky went to St. Louis until 9th grade, and then he got a scholarship to play football at Punahou.
He ended up at Punahou not because he's affluent, but he could play football.
And the way Mom tells the stories, here's this cute Hawaiian guy come into her class, and she was attracted to him right from the beginning.
Handsome Hawaiian new guy in 9th grade. He had all kinds of Hawaiians just crawling all over him. And he came in the homeroom, we were in the same class. I thought, oh God, look at that good-looking Hawaiian boy. So I wrote him a note. I said, "You're cute, and I'm Laura," 3 rows back. He'd been in a boys' school all his life. Poor thing, he was so embarrassed. But got the message. And one of our assignments was to catch butterflies. He would take us up to Tantalus with these butterfly nets, and we'd catch all these bugs. It was great. It was just great. I wouldn't let him go out with anybody else.
So he was pretty much yours?
He was mine.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
He's a junior in high school. He's playing a game in Maui. And then the next morning, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
It took a while to get everybody back and forth because there was blackout, there was martial law, there was no airplanes flying.
The military assumption was that the Japanese have crippled the United States fleet and that the logical thing they were going to do is invade. The football team were given rifles that they didn't know what they were, they didn't know how to shoot them, and my father was stationed on some beach on the northern side of Maui, and to shoot at somebody he don't know with tools he don't know how to work with, it was a crazy time, a scary time. His father said, okay, you need to go to war. You fight for your dirt, and you fight for your home. And if you make shame, don't come home. Well, you know, rough time to give everything up for your homeland and for your people. And if you don't do good, if you make shame, don't come home. And so my father carries that with him.
He wanted to join the Navy. He wanted to be a Navy pilot. So he went to the recruiter guy and he took one look at him and said, no, you're not gonna make it, kid. You're too dark. They'll have you in the galley peeling potatoes if you try to join the Navy. They're not gonna allow you.
They enlisted him in the Army. They thought he was Native American, so they make him first scout.
In England, General Dwight D. Eisenhower and his deputy commanders chart the liberation of a lost continent.
There was a Catholic priest who gave the prayer to people who may not make it across the beach. And that Catholic priest didn't say believe in the Catholic way of looking at religion, but to reach inside of each one of you and bring forward those things that you do believe in. And I think that single moment shifted my father, where you were free to believe any spiritual belief that was important to you at that moment, because you may not go home. And the chances are you're not going to go home. You don't talk a lot about that time, but you know it was extraordinarily rough, especially for someone that young. German sniper in the tree shot him in the head. So right below his temple, and it went through his left eye, took it out, and then exited his nose. I mean, because they didn't have telephones from Europe, right? They only had telegraph. And when Dad was shot, the grandma had a dream that he came home and he walked in the back door and he had ginger lay on, and that was the dream. And it was the telegraph came and said he was seriously wounded and probably wouldn't be coming back. And she told the family, no, I already saw him. The ginger lay meant that he was wounded, like that was his Allah to him, and that coming in the back door means he's the same door that he came home every time.
Oh, he ended up in the hospital in Framingham, Massachusetts. It was a hospital that was focused on veterans with head wounds. They were each given one telephone call free. but he couldn't call home to Hawaii because it was just too foreign for those people. So he called me at college. No, I think I just cried the whole time.
He says, you know, Nainoa, I had that bandage on my head for 2 years. And he says, it's in the blackness of that bandage that I understood the power of vision and the need to be very crystal clear and very simple about who you are, where you're going to be, what are you going to do with your life.
And there was a doctor named Hatt, H-A-T-T. And when Dr. Hatt came into his room, Dr. Hatt spoke to him in Hawaiian. Dr. Hatt came to the islands in 1924 to start the Shriners Hospital for children. And so he spent years and years and years with Hawaiian parents, and he learned the language fluently. You know, we grew up in that era, and we didn't know anything of Hawaiian except pau and moi moi, and so Pinky didn't know how to react, but he just was so moved.
I think his identity as a Hawaiian became stronger and stronger through that experience.
And when it was time for Pinky to be discharged, Dr. Hatt said, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I want to go to college. And he said, good, you go to college.
So my dad understood that in order to come home, you had to be able to make change, and you needed an education to do that. So he went to college and then got his degree in social work. And so this issue of justice, kapu na keiki, children are sacred, many of them are abandoned, many of them are abused. And so the choice of social work was to put them on the front lines again. It was going back to war. And so you see the statistics, right? Dying younger, more in the prisons, all the bad social, economic, medical health stuff. It's measurable. So my father understood dysfunction of Hawaiian families. My father understood in a very deep, intuitional way about the inferiority complex of Native Hawaiians. Nothing to contribute, too stupid, too uneducated, and lazy, all that stuff. It's an issue of shame, that being Hawaiian was to be shamed. And so you wouldn't talk about it. If you tried to honestly go and approach an issue, family would say, boy, we don't talk about that.
He was so determined that he's one of those guys that you couldn't stop him. He had a mission, man. His mission was to improve the conditions of Hawaiians. Pure and simple.
What came of that hurt and that anger was this ability of his and this commitment that we have so much, we Hawaiians, to offer to the world that we've just got to do it, and we've got to get over this business of we're not good enough, because we are.
He was always searching in the social work world for better solutions.
And then I was old enough, I was a little bit old enough to start seeing it and its impact on those people who are in the trenches or in the front lines, watching children die in the front lines of our own homes, in our own society, in our own in our own land. And I remember crystal clear in my head, and I know how old I was. I was 11 because his case, this boy by the name of Sam, was 11 also. I never met him, but my father's responsibility was to take care of Sam. He was clearly an angry boy. He was clearly a big Hawaiian. He's clearly very strong, powerful, unhappy. He's a mirror and a reflection of probably his father.
My dad's life became consumed in how do you figure out how to help somebody in that state. So desperately trying to break this kid of his pattern.
Dad comes home, Mom hugs him, he's crying, says, that Sam killed himself today. And my dad said, I knew he was going to do it, and I couldn't do anything about it.
And he said, something's wrong, something's missing. That sometimes our children are so abused when they're young that their whole world is about violence, their whole world is about dysfunction, their whole world is absent of hope.
He was devastated, devastated. You know, he tried so hard to help this kid, and he might have felt that he failed at that point in time. He started to figure out some of the stuff that he was trained on and thought he knew well wasn't working.
No matter how much money we throw at them in programs, there's something missing. There's a piece missing. No matter how much we give them in financial aid, how much we give them in programs, if they're not rooted in being proud of who they are, there are instances like Sam. You can't do anything. I knew he was going to do it, and I couldn't do anything about it. That time, that recognition with Sam, even as tragic as it might be, again, was a turning point. He couldn't do anything about it, so he kept searching,
That's where the impetus for early childhood education came through all of that, obviously, because I remember he would just say, let's forget all the other generations, focus on the kids, and over time it'll all work out. You have to nurture these kids. You have to provide environments so that the kids can grow and prosper and feel good about themselves.
If you don't take care of the child when they're very, very young, if all that you teach them is violence and anger and dysfunction and no hope, that's what they become when they're young. If you don't have love, if you don't have care, if it's not clean, if it's not healthy, the children become what you teach them. And so my father understood that the most important school is the house, and the most important teachers are those responsible for taking care of those children. And he knew it was broken.
Aloha means both farewell and greetings, and Hawaii bids farewell to 40 years of frustration and failure in attempts to win statehood, and joyously greets its new status as a full-fledged member of the Union, its 50th state. Land of the hula, of sugarcane and pineapple, with its polyglot population, brings a colorful culture as its heritage and contribution. The big day was a long time in coming, which means that much more to celebrate.
Statehood changed a lot of things, but in many ways the problems facing Native Hawaiians and the people of Hawaii stayed the same.
Well, I think Governor Burns, at that point, being 2 years into being a part of the U.S., I think he understood the system, and he felt it was important to bring Hawaiian and local leadership up into those roles that would be prominent in Hawaii and help guide us.
Governor actually brought him in as an administrative assistant.
One of the wonderful memories I'll always carry was the close working relationships that our congressional delegation had with our Native Hawaiian leadership. And I think Pinky personified that relationship so well. There were many reasons why Pinky and the senator were very close, both being World War II veterans, both being wounded in that effort, in that conflict.
Keep in mind that I was declared to be an enemy alien because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And it took a little while for people to realize that we're just as American as they are, that we're willing to sacrifice ourselves, that we love our country. And Pinky embodied all of that. So his trail and my trail were almost parallel. When you're in a hospital, for some of us, it gives us time to reflect. Then you begin thinking, why was that 92nd Division made up of only African Americans? Why was this regiment from Puerto Rico just Puerto Ricans? 442 was Japanese Americans. They were segregated. You can take that either and say, I give up, or hell with it, or do something about it. He did something. He formed Alu Like.
It really all started with Alu Like. Alu Like was given some money, again, through the efforts of Pinky and the congressional delegation to do a needs assessment. There hadn't been a needs assessment done of what did the community feel, the Native Hawaiian community feel its needs were. And it identified areas of concern in Native rights, in education, in health, housing, and economic development. Those were the 5 areas of concern. That became a work plan to address each of those areas. We were a very small group then. We were only 5 of us with Mrs. Rubin, that was our executive director. And of course, Pinky was our president.
We've used a process of empowering, hand up rather than hand out, and allowing the individuals to be enabled to do things by themselves, rather than being dependent on Alu Like or any other organization.
Grandpa knew that to support and raise a child in the best environment possible, a stable home was necessary. One of the most important elements to a stable home, I think, is to maintain stability from a financial perspective. Stability at home, happiness at home, at the parent level, and it trickles down to the kids.
Pinky had a structure about how to do that. Focus on the kids. Napua Hawaiʻi. They are the ones that will blossom.
My last senior year, I was doing a series of papers on American imperialism. That's when I first learned about the overthrow of the monarchy. And I said, how come I didn't know this? How come I didn't know about the annexation? We never had second thoughts about not learning the language. They were preparing us to be good and industrious American citizens. And to be good Americans, we might have to be bad Hawaiians. This is about 1966-67, and I'm principal of Nana Ikopono. Lots of problems. The learning styles of local kids are a little different from what teachers on the mainland would expect. They're more active, there's more motion in the classroom. You have to have a higher tolerance for noise, for sharing. They learn by sharing. It was difficult for teachers to see that, you know. Sharing to them was cheating. That became an issue with me because if you don't understand and know your students, how can you teach? You know, and if your students don't know and understand you, And how can they learn? But Pinky Thompson comes into my life again. Fred, how can I help you? Because he could understand what it meant when a kid is in the 8th grade and only reading at the 3rd grade level. He didn't have to do research to tell you that that kid is one step out. The curriculum was still steeped in Western tradition. Hawaiian studies, Hawaiian language, Hawaiian culture and history was not that important. Pinky was one of the first people to try to convince the Department of Education that they needed to have a Hawaiian Studies department. Pinky was saying to the Department of Education, if you can't do it, then we're going to do it some other way. If you don't want to do it, you're reluctant, you don't have the money, that's okay. We'll create a special committee from the governor's office. And that's the kind of stuff he did. The parents couldn't believe what they were hearing because curriculum meant a textbook developed in Wisconsin someplace, some workbook that some PhD got in California, and learning how to spell Mississippi instead of Nanakuli.
Daddy recognized education as one of the keys for strengthening the Hawaiian community.
We adopted a mission of creating a safe and healthy Hawaii. So anything that kind of fit under that broad umbrella of a mission, he was willing to do, even if he was stretched to the end of the earth. He was driven by wanting to figure out how to best help people. Totally driven by that. And that's, again, the early childhood education notion came out of this drive to figure out that something that he could leave behind that made sense, that's going to help future generations.
The biggest puka in education in Hawaii is that we do not begin when education needs to be there the most. We're there way too late. The world is changing so fast in many critical ways. Education is not being able to keep up. So my father brings the ideas of early childhood education back to Hawaii. I pick up the paper, and in the front page of the paper, this article, and the title was, "Pinky, who are you kidding?" And it was just this article just attacking my father for, what do you mean brain synapses and connection of nurturing the brain? If the connections aren't made, they can't be made later on. There's all this kind of brain development stuff. And my father was really campaigning as a single voice for early childhood education. I'm in my 20s, I'm like enraged, and who's this guy attacking my father? So I'm like stomping out the door saying, I'm gonna go find this guy, I'm gonna go fight with him. My dad grabs me and goes, "Hey, sit down. Stop it. Don't even waste your time." And I was like shocked. I was thinking, wow, you're not hurt? You're not embarrassed by being on the front page? That you're getting criticized? That's what's going in my head. He goes, don't waste your time. And if you believe it's right, then you stand up and go do it. And don't worry about what anybody else says.
By the 20s, when he was growing up, his mother was suppressed from speaking Hawaiian, so that was like, he was watching all of that stuff.
There was a family decision made in a Hawaiian family to not teach culture, to not teach language, to not teach genealogy, to choose to forget who we were. Maybe there's 100 generations before them that everything was passed on who we were. And all of a sudden, in our family, that's where the break was. And that break was in many families in that time.
And I think in my father, it was the issue of responsibility, setting things to right. The issue of his life being about that kuleana that he needed to take to help heal the damage to his people.
You've been the moving force behind the Polynesian Voyaging Society. What are your feelings about that?
I subscribe to what is being done. The idea of recreating history and trying to find out how our people came to be. It's very important to me, as well as I feel to the Hawaiian people, particularly, but certainly for the people of Hawaii. And that's the driving motivation behind me. Aside from the fact I want my son to come home.
Thank you very much.
The Polynesian Voyaging Society, when it was created, the concept, it was to really challenge the thought that was being circulated throughout the, scholarly world, like the Kon-Tiki. Those theories was based on adrift, downwind sailing, didn't give any credit to a knowledge, skilled-based voyaging or exploration, where you could actually go out and be skilled enough to navigate, find your way along a path, and then make it back home. A big drive and purpose was to relearn that. The actual genius of wayfinding, of Polynesian voyaging.
Aloha Tahiti, aloha nui e, mai poina ia'u e matawai, ma ke ala a kau e lele nei, mala mai te po i te ao, alaka i mai hoku le ai ka wa'a, wa'a kau lua holo i ke kailoa.
Oh, it was magical. It was magical. Can you imagine, your whole life you grow up, you hear the stories of your kupuna and the stories of how these islands came to be settled, and it's all conjecture. I mean, you gotta imagine in your mind what that might have been like. When Hokulea emerged on the scene, it became being able to see what that really was like and actually feel it by getting on board the canoe. So it was just a whole new era for Hawaiian consciousness. Yeah.
There was those that, a larger part of the society, just like didn't understand. What is this? So what? I don't get it. And there was another part of the society I think really didn't want Hokulea to be successful. I think they feared that canoe because it's going to change everything. That day was heavy weather, and it was blowing for quite a bit. The wind was over 30 knots. That's well past small craft warnings into gale warnings. The seas were fully developed, which means that, you got swells out there of 20, 30 feet. And, it's white. The water's white because of all the wind and the white caps. And the wind was strong. That's a strong wind.
It was storming. And they took off. We came home, and Daddy got all of his maps out. He put it all over the table. He had everything out there, and he was figuring out how fast they were going, so how far they were.
Went out in that weather. The canoe, one hull, the starboard hull, filled up with water, swamped, and then she flipped, huli'd.
So Eria Ekau, a legendary waterman and lifeguard from the North Shore, who spent his life saving people in the ocean, was on board at that time. And in his life of saving people, wanted to go save his friends and family that were on the canoe. So he took a surfboard and went to look for help.
The wind was so strong, it was out of the north, it was cold, that we call it ehukai. That there's so many infinite amount of whitecaps and crushing kind waves that every time the water turns over, it throws salt into the air. What we call is ehukai, it's like a fog. You cannot see the horizon because it's like this thick fog of salt that becomes the horizon. You couldn't see Oahu, you couldn't see Molokai, you couldn't see Lanai. And you know, Eddie set out on the surfboard to paddle to Lanai. And so you got a man that willing to stand up for everybody else and go get help for an island he couldn't see.
So while Eddie was out at sea, a Hawaiian Airlines flight actually spotted the flares that they sent up.
There are still the 3 officers who are remaining with the vessel at this time. They are Captain David Lyman, the first mate, Sterling, and the communications officer, Mr. Pianaya. Okay. There's one individual at this time who is unaccounted for. He is on a surfboard, and that is Eddie Aikau.
After the canoe, disabled and hulied, and then the news finally broke right after we were rescued with the Coast Guard, and then they brought the canoe back in, and you could just see it. A lot of people were really in their hearts, thinking that this is the beginning of the end, or this is it. And then, especially with the loss of a life, it was even tenfold that this whole thing was just, is it worth it, right?
You ask about the time was broken. There was no vision, there were no dreams, there was no hope. It was all replaced with shame and with guilt and pain, sorrow and anger. And it was statewide. So it was also a measurement of really how much Hokulea meant to the hope of tomorrow and what it could and should do. But at that moment in time, its legacy was tragedy at a level that nobody could ever imagine.
Go sit in the van. Go sit in the van. Sam. Come to the van, buddy.
Yeah, I'd like to just go over the reason for our making this a very extensive trip.
Again, the one that pulled us out of the ashes was my father.
When Hokulea was being rebuilt after the swamping, Pinky coming on board as the new president for the Polynesian Voyaging Society. Pinky was very hands-on. We were going through a very traumatic time, and spiritually we were very wounded. And it took a real special kind of person to actually help us lift ourselves out of that tragedy. What he showed us was we had to rebuild ourselves. We had to become very clear about the vision of where we want to go and create some kind of a mission to get us there, and to be very strategic about how we got there.
Dad was, going to Congress, raising money, through Danny Noy's office, $1 million. They're getting $1 million to help a canoe sail around the Pacific. The Congress guys are going crazy. What's up with this? And I remember hearing Dad and Nainoa talking about this in the early days. The driving force for them was, we're going to do this, but we have to make it successful and to be done so that it can be something that Hawaiians can be proud of.
My father sits me down and goes, okay, Nainoa. He says, you got only one job. Your job is to learn. And him, I'm gonna do everything else. That's why I will always, and I say this out of great respect and out of humility for Mao and for Gordon and for Abe and everybody else. Still, my greatest navigator is my father, because he navigates us out of the deepest and the most painful places of the human existence. And he brings not just hope, he creates success.
One of Pinky's really biggest gifts was his ability to put together teams. When we would travel to these places, it was a very strong representation, making sure that the cultural protocol was appropriate and that we were respectful of the people that we were visiting and who were hosting us. And then there would be the governmental component of it, meeting with the ministers of the places where we were and having that kind of exchange, formal exchanges between the governments and the leaders of the areas that we were in.
They knew that the cultural significance could be huge. Could be huge not only for Hawaii and Hawaiians, but for other indigenous people in the South Pacific and throughout the Pacific region.
Hokulea and her voyages was a big part of the Hawaiian Renaissance, which started in the 1970s.
You know, the Hawaiian Renaissance, when the culture was being celebrated. It was being opened up and embraced and learned about, and you know, because there was an idea that was like being germinated and spread around like the Hawaiian culture. It was, you know, this is how it was. It was always put into the context of past tense, and that's how it's going to be, right? When the Renaissance came along, the thing was swinging around to it is. The Hawaiian culture is. You know, it's just a matter of us embracing it, learning about it, practicing it to whatever degree, and celebrating the beauty of it.
There was a reawakening of Hawaiian consciousness, there was an explosion of Hawaiian culture, and the community throughout the state of Hawaii was activated. Individuals started feeling this new sense of pride and understanding of their culture and their past, and wanting to voice concern of the issues that are facing the Native Hawaiian people. So one of the big questions back then was, well, where can their voices be heard, and who's going to listen? And I think that was a big question in my grandpa's mind.
We knew actually when he was frustrated. We knew because he had come home frustrated, and he had a very angry side about him at times when he wanted something done so desperately he couldn't get it done.
He developed a very close working relationship with Senator Noi's staff. Pat de Leon was the staffer who was able to take the power that Senator Noi had, his boss, the vision that Pinky had, bring them together and look for federal programs that could incorporate Native Hawaiians, or if they didn't exist, to create them. He had a lot of help with another gal named Patricia Zell, who was an American Indian lawyer with a real understanding of relationships in the American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian communities.
It was Pinky who went to the senator and said, first of all, we need federal resources. And we need to have a study that shows that those federal resources are necessary, or we're not going to make the kind of progress that we need to make.
Pinky never rested. He was a 24-hour guy. He would call you perhaps at 9 o'clock at night and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? And do you think we could put some paper, concept paper together really quick? And you're half asleep and you say, oh, okay, we try.
These two acts that ultimately became the Native Hawaiian Healthcare Improvement Act and the Native Hawaiian Education Act were pretty much following parallel tracks. So he saw that healthcare and education were integrally related, and you couldn't address one set of challenges without addressing the other. Pinky came up to Washington with great regularity to accomplish all of these things. When you live in an air-conditioned house and you drive an air-conditioned car to work and you work in an air-conditioned building, you don't know. You have no ability to fully empathize with people who don't live lives like yours. And you certainly can't know what the answer or solutions are to the challenges they're facing. We said, no, we've got to go where they are and sit down and talk through and fashion provisions of bills. When the committee finally put a bill together, the committee came out and held hearings on each of the 5 islands, and not just once, but several years in a row.
Those testimonies were community coming forward and sharing their mana'o. You had aunties and uncles and young kids really pour their hearts out in terms of where they saw their future, where their concerns were, what their needs were.
There was some very moving testimony in which parents said, our experience in the education system was so miserable, so painful. People, the teachers thought we were stupid. If we didn't catch on right away, sort of relegated us to the back of the room. I don't go to my child's school because when I go into that building, all those terrible memories come back to me and it's very painful. And I don't want my child to have that same experience. Don't treat my kids this way. Don't treat my kids the way I was treated. I can remember, particularly Senator Inouye, just kind of sitting back in his chair going, wow, that really needed to be said. When members of Congress understood how severe those problems were, they started going, we've got to do something about this. In both cases, true democracy, if you will, building systems from the ground up that are relevant to the people's needs, not to what works most easily for the federal government, was a whole new way of approaching these things. And people in Indian country began to look and hear about this and go, whoa, this is where we would like to be. This is what we would like to have ultimately.
Pinky was very instrumental in the founding of the Papaola Lokahi organization.
My father started the early childhood program in Kamehameha schools. He's got 31 preschools, the largest provider in not only the state, but I bet in the country in terms of any secondary school.
That elevated us to another level. That took us to another level that a lot of people have never been to, where we could really do things. We could really do things.
So when they went to Waitangi and Daddy saw the marae and the larger community come out and how everybody gathered there and got together as a group, Daddy was super inspired by that. And I think at that time he told Nainoa, we really need to do this in Hawaii.
So he saw the marae as a gathering place for Native people where you could greet visitors, you could bring your people there for healing. It really was a physical manifestation and a physical center for cultural endeavors.
I want to thank you also for giving us the opportunity and the rest of Polynesia to write those pages of our history and to film and put on film those pages of our history that have not been written yet.
And then we go into to have dinner inside the dining hall area, and that was the moment. That was the very moment where it all became clear to him again, the need for something for your people. It's a place where family comes and you can be safe and you can be fed. It goes exactly back to he was a child. Right back there. Now, where is the safe place for the Hawaiian child to go?
So Kaiva Kilamoku was created and is our place. It's our place for Polynesian Voyaging Society, it's our place for commitment schools, it's our place for the community. Everybody is welcome there.
And my father said, this place is a place that you need to bring people together. You need to talk about. That's why this is a place that we know, that I understand, that is a commitment not just to Hawaii, not just to Hawaiians, but to the Pacific. And that my father knew that in the end, Kaiva Kilamoku was ultimately supposed to be a place to heal.
Well, Pinky never believed in the word impossible. You know, that's a cop-out. Because you can say, well, I'd love to do that, but it's impossible. As we've said, if there's a man-made problem, there is a man-made solution.
His strength was in getting people to believe in a vision and dreams and to come up with a process to make those dreams a reality.
But Pinky became a mentor to all of us, interacting with other people and affecting other people's lives. That's when you see certain types of people who just like rise.
So even after his passing, you can see his legacy move on and live on in all these organizations in Hawaii and making a positive change, even until now, and I'm sure into the future.
You know, Nainoa makes mention of Uncle Pinky being our best navigator, yeah? So when you're navigating at night, for me and for a lot of navigators, that's the most accurate time because you've got 1,000 clues around you, all these different stars. And you know, you really feel that connection, and through that connection, it's ancestral by its very nature, but it's also a bridge builder by its very function. So, you know, the main role of the navigator is in your mind, you have this vision of your course. But Uncle Pinky, as a navigator, he was like a true leader, you know, because he had these visions.
I'd like to express my aloha to all of you, aloha pumihana kako, for convening this gathering in order to find a way. It's our duty and our responsibility to make clear that learning is a process that's ongoing and that our ancient people brought with them a great deal of wisdom that has a place in contemporary society today.
Ma'apono bike